Close your eyes for a moment and imagine a forest in late November. The last of the amber leaves have drifted to the damp earth, and a heavy silver sky hangs low over the skeletal branches of the trees. There is a specific kind of silence that arrives with the first true frost, a restorative hush that signals a change in the very frequency of life. The frantic buzz of summer and the busy harvest of autumn have faded away, replaced by a stillness so profound it feels as though the earth itself is holding its breath. The world isn't fading. It is simply exhaling, settling into a deep, necessary period of recovery. Before we journey deeper into the quiet of the winter woods, if you find these stories helpful for your rest, please feel free to subscribe to the channel or leave a gentle like on this video. It helps these sleepy science stories reach others who are looking for a moment of peace, and it truly means a lot to me. Thank you for being here. Beyond the frost-covered branches and the frozen crust of the streams, something remarkable is happening. We often think of winter as a time of absence, but for much of the natural world, it is a period of intense internal focus. This is the concept of metabolic stillness, the biological art of waiting. It is a masterpiece of evolution, a way for living things to exist without consuming, to survive by slowing down the passage of time within their own cells. It is a master class in efficiency, where the goal is not to do more but to be less until the warmth of the sun returns to the soil. As you settle further into your pillows, let the weight of your blankets remind you of the snow that will soon tuck the world away. Tonight, we are going to explore the quiet mechanics of this survival. We will look at the creatures who turn their bodies into fortresses against the cold, the chemistry of the slow heartbeat, and the mystery of how life persists when the world turns to ice. We are setting the stage for a journey through the science of winter, learning how nature navigates the leanest months of the year with a patient, rhythmic grace. Feel the stillness of your own space mirroring the quiet transformation outside as we begin to understand what it truly means to rest. When we think of hibernation, we often imagine a bear or a ground squirrel simply taking a very long nap, perhaps dreaming of the spring to come. But in the world of biology, hibernation is something much more complex and much more beautiful than sleep. It is a profound physiological shift, a state scientists call regulated hypothermia and metabolic depression. While sleep is a restorative process for the brain, hibernation is a survival strategy for the entire body, a way to turn down the dial on life itself until the external world becomes hospitable again. In a normal state of sleep, our bodies remain warm, our hearts beat at a steady pace, and our brains continue to flicker with the electricity of dreams. But for a hibernating animal, the internal thermostat is intentionally reset. They do not simply get cold because of the weather. They allow their core temperature to drop, sometimes to within just a few degrees of the freezing air around them. This is the regulated part of the mystery. The animal remains in control, even as its metabolic rate, the very engine that processes energy, slows down to a mere fraction of its normal speed. In some species, the metabolism drops to less than 5% of its usual activity. It is as if the fire of life has been reduced to a single glowing ember, tucked safely beneath the ash to wait out the storm. This brings us to a wonder of nature that seems almost impossible, the rhythm of the heart. In the height of summer, a small mammal's heart might race at several hundred beats per minute, a frantic, energetic pulse that powers a life of constant movement. But as they settle into the deep quiet of hibernation, that pulse begins to stretch and widen. You might find yourself wondering how a heart can slow down so dramatically without stopping altogether. How can a body sustain life when the beats are separated by long, silent minutes of stillness? The answer lies in the heart's transformation into a patient, steady metronome. It no longer races to keep the body hot. Instead, it provides just enough movement to keep the blood from stagnating, a gentle, rhythmic reminder that life is still present. It is a slow, deliberate ticking in the darkness of the burrow. If you listen closely to the silence of your own room, you might begin to feel the echo of that same steady peace. Your own heart doesn't need to race right now. It is free to slow down, to find its own calm cadence as you sink deeper into the comfort of your bed. The heart of the hibernator is not failing. It is simply waiting, keeping time with the slow rotating earth, proving that there is a deep sustaining power in the art of doing very little. As we consider that slow, steady heartbeat, we might wonder how a creature knows exactly when to begin this deep transition. It isn't just a sudden reaction to the first sharp frost or the first snowflake hitting the ground. By then, it would be too late. Instead, nature uses a much more reliable clock, the sun. This phenomenon is known as photoperiodism. It is the biological ability to sense the changing length of the day with incredible precision. As the Earth tilts on its axis, leaning away from the sun's warmth, the hours of daylight begin to dwindle, and the shadows grow longer, softer, and more persistent. The animals do not need a calendar or a watch. They feel the fading light in their very cells, a subtle shift in the environment that signals the coming of the great quiet. Deep within the brain, nestled in a protected space, lies a tiny pine cone-shaped structure called the pineal gland. You can think of it as a bridge between the outside world and the internal landscape of the body. This gland is exquisitely sensitive to light. As the days shorten and the nights stretch out, the eyes send a message through the optic nerves, informing the brain that the golden hours are receding. In response, the pineal gland begins to increase its production of melatonin. This is often called the hormone of darkness because it primarily emerges when the light fades. For a hibernator, this isn't just a signal to sleep for the night. It is a chemical lullaby that begins to play on a grander scale. It is a whisper that travels through the bloodstream, reaching every organ and every muscle, telling them that the season of frantic activity is coming to a close. The circadian rhythms, those ancient internal cycles that govern our waking and our resting, begin to synchronize with the rhythm of the planet. It is a beautiful alignment of the biological and the celestial. Just as the earth slows down and prepares for its winter mantle, the animal's internal clock resets itself. It prepares the body for a journey into the stillness. As you listen to these words, take a moment to notice the environment around you. Notice the darkness in your own room and how it feels like a soft, protective curtain drawn against the world. Feel the weight of your blankets as they rest over you, providing a gentle, grounding pressure. It is a comforting heaviness, much like the weight of the earth above a sleeping badger, or the thick, insulating snow that blankets a bear's den. In this darkness, there is no need for effort. There is no need for light. Your own internal clock is sensing this peace, signaling to your mind that it is safe to let go of the day's concerns. We have looked at the why, the way the stars and the sun guide the body toward rest. But understanding the timing is only the beginning. Once the internal clock declares that winter is near, a profound physical transformation must take place. The body cannot simply enter a state of stillness without a foundation to support it. It requires a period of intense preparation, a gathering of energy, and a building of reserves that will act as the fuel for the long, cold months ahead. This transition from sensing the season to physically bracing for it is a remarkable feat of biological engineering, a period of abundance that precedes the long, quiet fast. This period of intense, focused preparation is known to biologists as hyperphagia. Derived from the Greek words for over and eating, it is a biological imperative that transforms the animal's relationship with its environment. During these final weeks of autumn, the search for food is no longer a casual activity. It becomes a singular, driving purpose. For a creature like the grizzly bear, this means consuming upwards of 20,000 calories a day, the equivalent of eating dozens of full human meals in a single 24-hour cycle. They forage for succulent berries, calorie-dense nuts, and the rich, fatty tissues of migrating salmon. Every morsel is a deposit into a biological savings account, a storehouse of energy that will be slowly drawn upon when the landscape turns white and the rivers turn to ice. It is a remarkable transformation to witness. A ground squirrel or a marmot may nearly double its body weight in a matter of weeks, its small frame becoming soft and round, insulated by a thick layer of specialized fat. This isn't merely about size. It is about the chemistry of survival. The body creates two types of fat: white adipose tissue, which serves as a long-term fuel source, and brown adipose tissue, a fascinating substance that acts almost like a biological furnace, capable of generating heat without the need for shivering. As the animal eats, its metabolism shifts, becoming incredibly efficient at converting every calorie into these precious reserves. There is a profound sense of purpose in this gathering, a deep cellular knowledge that the abundance of the present is what will sustain the stillness of the future. There is a unique kind of comfort in this state of being well-fed and fully prepared. Imagine the feeling of a heavy, satisfied quiet that follows a large, nourishing meal. The way the body feels grounded, warm, and ready for a long, undisturbed rest. For the hibernator, this is the ultimate goal. They are building a sanctuary within their own bodies, a self-sustaining system that requires nothing from the outside world once the door to the den is closed. They are ready to step away from the cycle of searching and consuming, retreating into a space where time slows down and the need for effort simply evaporates. It is the peace of knowing that everything has been gathered, every preparation has been made, and there is nothing left to do but settle in and wait. As you lie there, tucked safely into your own space, you might feel a reflection of that same satisfaction. Your day is done, your needs are met, and like the creatures of the forest, you have reached the moment where the outside world can be left behind. You are prepared for your own journey into the quiet. But as we look closer at this seasonal rest, we find that nature has designed more than one way to navigate the cold. The stillness we call hibernation is actually part of a spectrum of survival, ranging from brief pauses in activity to deep months-long trances. To understand the true depth of this winter peace, we must look at the different rhythms the body can adopt, starting with the subtle nightly shift known as torpor. While some animals prepare for a single, long winter rest, others practice a more frequent, rhythmic form of stillness known as daily torpor. This is not a season-long commitment, but a nightly survival strategy, most famously used by the smallest of birds and mammals. Consider the hummingbird, a creature that seems to exist in a state of perpetual high-speed motion. During the day, its wings are a blur and its heart beats with a frantic intensity to fuel its search for nectar. But as the sun sets and the flowers close, the hummingbird faces a crisis of energy. It simply cannot store enough fuel to maintain its high body temperature through a cold night. To solve this, it enters torpor, a state of profound metabolic depression. In the span of just an hour or two, its internal temperature can drop by 40 or 50 degrees, falling until it nearly matches the cool night air. Its breathing becomes irregular and shallow, and its heart rate slows to a rhythmic, patient pulse. In this state, the hummingbird is no longer the darting jewel of the garden. It is a tiny, motionless statue clinging to a twig in the darkness. There is a quiet tension in this stillness. For these few hours, the bird is incredibly vulnerable. It has traded its ability to react for the ability to survive. If a predator were to approach, the hummingbird could not simply snap its wings and disappear into the sky. It would take several minutes of intense internal shivering to raise its body temperature high enough for flight. This is a total surrender to the environment, a deep trust in the shadows and the silence of the night. It is a reminder that sometimes the only way to move forward is to stop entirely. Some species of bats follow a similar path. When the insects they hunt vanish in the chill of a passing cold front, the bats retreat to their roosts and allow their bodies to go cold. They hang in the darkness, their tiny hearts beating only a few times a minute, waiting for the world to become hospitable again. It is a beautiful, efficient pause, a way of saying that if the world cannot provide what is needed right now, the body will simply stop asking. They are masters of the wait, existing in a space where time feels different, stretched thin and quiet. The payoff for this vulnerability is a remarkable preservation of life. By dipping into torpor, these small creatures conserve an immense amount of energy that would otherwise be wasted, fighting the inevitable cold. They wait in the dark, held in a state of suspended animation, until the very moment the environment shifts in their favor. As the first pale light of morning begins to warm the trees, their internal systems begin to stir. Their heart rates climb, their blood begins to circulate more quickly, and they reboot their consciousness just as the sun provides the warmth they need to start their day. It is a perfect synchronization with the planet's daily pulse, a rhythm of cooling down and warming up that mirrors the rising and setting of the sun. But as we move deeper into the cold, we find that some animals have mastered a stillness that goes far beyond a few hours of nightly rest. There are those that do not just match the temperature of the night air, but actually descend into the heart of the frost itself, pushing the limits of biology to the very edge of the impossible. To see the true extreme of this survival, we must look to the north, to a small creature that has turned the freezing cold into its own sanctuary. In the vast, wind-swept stretches of the Arctic tundra, there lives a small, unassuming creature that holds a world record for survival. This is the Arctic ground squirrel, a champion of extreme cold that has mastered a biological feat once thought impossible. While other hibernators lower their temperatures to match the cool air of a sheltered burrow, the Arctic ground squirrel goes much further. It descends into a state known as supercooling, where its core body temperature actually drops below the freezing point of water. For 7 or 8 months of the year, this little squirrel remains tucked away in a burrow lined with dry grass and caribou hair, deep beneath the permafrost. Outside, the polar winds howl and the temperature plummets to levels that would be lethal to almost any other mammal. But inside the burrow, the squirrel has entered a silence so profound it defies our usual understanding of life. Its body temperature can dip as low as negative 2.9 degrees Celsius, nearly 27 degrees Fahrenheit. In any other creature, this would mean the end. The water in the cells would turn to jagged ice crystals, expanding and causing irreparable damage to the delicate structures of the body. But the squirrel has a secret. Through a process of incredible biological precision, the Arctic ground squirrel manages to keep its blood and tissues in a liquid state, even when they are technically frozen by the numbers. It does this by systematically clearing its blood of any nucleators, tiny particles like dust, certain proteins, or bacteria that would normally give ice a place to start forming. Without these seeds of frost, the liquid stays liquid. It is a state of precarious, beautiful balance. Imagine the stillness of that squirrel's body in the dark earth. It is colder than the ice that surrounds it, yet it remains soft. Its blood continues to move, a slow and heavy river of life that refuses to turn to stone. It is a delicate biological dance, a performance of chemistry and physics that allows the squirrel to wait out the harshest winter on Earth in a state of absolute icy peace. There is no shivering, no struggle. There is only the quiet persistence of a life held in a crystalline pause. As you rest in the warmth and safety of your own space, it is a comfort to think of such resilience. Even in the most extreme conditions, nature has found a way to preserve the spark of life through stillness. But even in this state of supercooling, the squirrel's body must perform a series of internal miracles to keep the flame from going out entirely. To truly appreciate the depth of this quiet, we must look past the frozen skin and the liquid blood and turn our attention to the very center of this tiny survivor. We must look at the mechanics of the heart, the steady, patient metronome that must continue to beat, even when the world around it has turned to solid ice. Think for a moment about the heart of that ground squirrel, tucked away in the frozen earth. In the height of summer, as it scurries through the tundra grass, its heart is a frantic, tiny engine, pulsing at more than 300 beats every minute. It is a blur of energy, driven by the urgent need to gather, to eat, and to stay alert. But now, in the deep velvet silence of the burrow, that engine has shifted into a gear we can barely imagine. The 300 beats have slowed, settling into a rhythm so sparse it feels more like a memory than a physical process. The heart now beats perhaps 3 or 4 times in a minute, one slow throb, a long, vast silence, and then another. In a human or any non-hibernating animal, such a profound cooling of the body would cause the heart to falter and eventually stop. Normally, as the temperature drops, the delicate chemistry that governs the heartbeat begins to break down. Tiny channels in the heart cells that move calcium, the mineral that triggers a contraction, become sluggish. In the cold, calcium can build up inside the cells, causing the heart muscle to seize or lose its rhythm entirely. It is a biological wall that most life cannot climb. But the hibernator has evolved a way to bypass this wall. Their heart cells possess specialized proteins and ion pumps that remain efficient even when the temperature nears the freezing point. They manage the flow of calcium with a quiet, effortless precision, ensuring that each beat is strong and clear no matter how much time passes between them. The heart doesn't struggle against the cold. It cooperates with it. It becomes a steady, patient metronome, keeping the most basic pilot light of life flickering until the sun returns. As you listen to the sound of my voice, you might find yourself becoming aware of the rhythm of your own heart. You don't need to search for it or try to change it. Just notice the gentle, reliable pulse in your chest, or perhaps the soft thrum in your fingertips. Your heart is a faithful companion, adjusting itself perfectly to your needs. As you settle deeper into your bed, it naturally begins to slow, mirroring the peace of your surroundings. It is a soothing internal clock, ticking away the seconds of your rest, keeping you safe and grounded in the present moment. Feel the weight of your body pressing into the mattress, supported and still, as your pulse finds its own quiet, resting cadence. This incredible slowing of the heart is only one half of the hibernator's internal symphony. For the heart to beat, even at such a glacial pace, it requires a partnership with the lungs. And just as the heart has found a way to linger in the silence between beats, the breath of the hibernator undergoes a transformation that is perhaps even more mysterious. To understand how a creature can survive for months in a world of ice, we must look not just at the blood that flows, but at the air that enters, or more accurately, the long, peaceful stretches of time where the air is not needed at all. In the stillness of the den, the very act of breathing becomes a rare and precious event. In our waking lives, breathing is a constant, rhythmic necessity, an anchor that tethers us to the living world. We rarely think about it, yet we inhale and exhale thousands of times a day without fail. But in the deep, cold quiet of a winter burrow, the rules of respiration shift into something almost unrecognizable. This state is known as apnea, long, deliberate pauses in breathing that can stretch for minutes at a time. For a hibernating ground squirrel or a hedgehog, the chest may remain perfectly still, showing no sign of movement for 10, 20, or even 30 minutes. It is a level of stillness that feels impossible to us, yet for them, it is the ultimate expression of biological efficiency. This long silence of the lungs is made possible by a remarkable adjustment in the animal's blood chemistry. Normally, if we were to stop breathing for even a minute, our carbon dioxide levels would rise, signaling the brain to trigger a desperate gasp for air. But the hibernator's body has learned to be patient. Their blood contains specialized forms of hemoglobin, the protein responsible for carrying oxygen, that are finely tuned to the cold. This hemoglobin becomes more efficient at capturing every stray molecule of oxygen and distributing it with extreme care to only the most vital organs. At the same time, their tissues become incredibly tolerant of rising carbon dioxide. The alarm that usually forces a breath is dialed down to a whisper, allowing the animal to remain in a state of profound, uninterrupted calm. There is a deep restorative peace in a breath that is barely needed. Imagine for a moment the sensation of your own breathing becoming so light, so effortless, that it feels as though the air is simply moving in and out of you on its own, like a gentle tide. You don't have to reach for it. It is just there, providing exactly what you need with no exertion at all. As you lie there, you might notice how your own chest rises and falls with less and less effort. Each exhale is a release, a letting go of any lingering tension, leaving behind a hollow, quiet space of pure relaxation. The world outside may be rushing, but here, in the sanctuary of your bed, time has slowed down, and the need to do anything at all has simply faded away. While these smaller creatures like the ground squirrel push the limits of what it means to be still, they are not the only masters of the long winter rest. Our journey through the science of stillness naturally leads us to the most iconic figure of the season, the bear. For many of us, the image of a bear curled in a snowy den is the very definition of hibernation. Yet, the way a bear sleeps is fundamentally different from the deep frozen state of the smaller mammals we've discussed. Theirs is a specialized version of the winter journey, a delicate balance between total dormancy and a strange, watchful readiness. As we move from the tiny burrows of the forest floor to the sturdy, insulated dens of the mountainside, we begin to see how nature has designed more than one way to wait for the light. The bear is perhaps the most famous symbol of the winter rest, yet the way a bear sleeps is quite different from the deep frozen state of the smaller mammals we have explored. In the scientific community, this state is often referred to as winter sleep or lethargy, rather than true hibernation. While a ground squirrel might let its body temperature drop nearly to the freezing point, a bear's temperature only dips by a few degrees, remaining relatively close to its normal waking state. This allows the bear to remain in a specialized version of dormancy, a state of watchful rest. Because they stay warm, they can be roused much more quickly than a true hibernator. If a disturbance occurs near the den, a bear can become alert and mobile in a matter of minutes, providing a layer of protection that a frozen squirrel simply does not have. It is a lighter, more flexible kind of peace, a long drift through the shadows of the season. The sanctuary where this transformation happens is the den, a space carefully chosen for its safety and its ability to hold the heat. A bear might find a hollow tree, a small cave, or even dig a burrow into a hillside, lining the floor with a soft bed of moss, dry grass, and evergreen boughs. But the true magic of the den's warmth comes from the weather itself. As the winter deepens, a thick, heavy blanket of snow settles over the landscape, sealing the entrance of the den. Snow is one of nature's most effective insulators. It is comprised mostly of trapped air, which prevents the Earth's natural warmth from escaping and keeps the biting sub-zero winds at bay. Inside the den, the air is still and silent. The temperature remains steady, a quiet pocket of calm held within the frozen earth. Imagine the feeling of being in such a place, tucked away from the world, hearing only the muffled, distant sound of the wind as it brushes over the snow high above your head. You are warm, and the outside world has no claim on your time. In this secluded space, the bear begins a journey of survival that seems to defy the laws of biology. For a human, the idea of staying in bed for several months without a single meal or even a sip of water is impossible. Our systems are designed for constant intake and constant movement. If we were to go without water for even a few days, our bodies would begin to struggle. Yet, the bear remains in its den for 4 to 7 months, neither eating nor drinking nor passing any waste. This is one of the great mysteries of the natural world. How does a creature survive for half a year without the basic requirements of life? The answer lies in a remarkable feat of internal chemistry. Normally, when a body breaks down protein, it produces a waste product called urea, which must be filtered by the kidneys and expelled from the body in the form of urine. This process requires a significant amount of water. If a bear were to follow this normal path, it would quickly become dehydrated. Instead, the bear's body performs a kind of biological alchemy. It breaks the urea down and harvests the nitrogen, recycling it back into the bloodstream to create new amino acids. These amino acids are then used to build new proteins. In essence, the bear is fed by its own internal processes, turning what should be a waste product into the very building blocks of its body. It is a perfect closed loop of efficiency. By recycling its nitrogen, the bear avoids the need for water and prevents its kidneys from being overwhelmed. It is a state of total self-sufficiency, a body that has learned to sustain itself on nothing but the air it breathes and the reserves it has stored. In this profound stillness, the bear is not just waiting for the spring. It is being quietly maintained and renewed, its life held in a steady, shimmering balance. As you listen to the story of this internal recycling, you might feel a similar sense of self-sufficiency in your own rest. The feeling that right now, in this moment, you have everything you need. You are whole, you are supported, and your body knows exactly how to care for itself while you drift. This ability to recycle nutrients does more than just keep the bear alive. It serves a vital purpose in maintaining the bear's physical strength. Even though the bear remains motionless for months on end, it does not suffer the way a human would from such a long period of inactivity. We are beginning to understand that the bear's winter sleep is not just about saving energy, but about a miraculous preservation of the very fabric of the body. If a human were to lie still in bed for several months, our bodies would begin to change in ways that are quite difficult to reverse. Without the constant pull of gravity and the resistance of movement, our muscles would begin to waste away, a process known as atrophy. Our bones, too, would lose their density, becoming brittle and fragile as the body reabsorbs the minerals it thinks it no longer needs. This is a significant challenge for astronauts in space and for people recovering from long illnesses. But the bear in its winter den defies these rules of biology. It is an evolutionary masterpiece of physical preservation. When a bear finally emerges from its den in the spring, it has not become weak or frail. Despite 4 to 7 months of total inactivity, it has lost very little of its muscle mass and almost none of its bone strength. Its heart is strong, its limbs are capable, and its skeleton remains as dense and resilient as it was in the autumn. This is a medical mystery that scientists are working tirelessly to understand. They have discovered that the bear's body produces specific proteins and signaling molecules that tell the muscles to stay put and the bones to keep their structure. It is as if the bear's DNA contains a master switch for maintenance mode, ensuring that the physical frame remains intact while the fire of the metabolism burns low. For researchers, the bear is more than just a marvel of nature. It is a source of profound hope for human medicine. By studying the chemistry of the hibernating bear, we may one day find new ways to treat osteoporosis or help the elderly maintain their strength. We might even find the key to keeping astronauts healthy on long voyages to distant planets. The bear, sleeping so peacefully in the dark, holds the secrets to a kind of biological immortality, the ability to pause life without losing the essence of its strength. As you lie here now, you might think of your own body in this way. Even in your deepest stillness, your body is not failing. It is maintaining itself. There is a quiet, powerful intelligence at work beneath your skin, keeping your heart steady, your breath flowing, and your frame supported. You do not need to do anything to stay strong in this moment. Like the bear, you are being held in a state of perfect preservation. The stillness is not a loss of power, but a gathering of it. The image of the great bear, heavy and powerful in its snow-covered sanctuary, is one of immense stability. But as we move further into the heart of the winter forest, we find that this gift of metabolic stillness belongs to the small and the delicate just as much as the large and the mighty. The forest floor is home to creatures far smaller than the bear, whose survival depends on an even more profound kind of disappearance. We leave the deep, earthy scent of the bear's den behind and turn our attention to the tiny, soft sleepers tucked away in the undergrowth, where the scale of life shifts from the monumental to the miniature. These smaller voyagers have their own ways of navigating the long cold, proving that even the most fragile life is built to endure. From the heavy, steady presence of the bear, we shrink our perspective down to the forest floor, where the moss grows thick and the fallen leaves form a golden, crunchy carpet. Here, hidden away in a hollow at the base of an old hazel tree or tucked deep within a tangle of honeysuckle, lives a creature whose very name is synonymous with the art of rest, the dormouse. The name itself is thought to come from the Latin word dormire, meaning to sleep, and it is a title this tiny traveler has earned through centuries of evolution. While the bear is a winter sleeper, the dormouse is a true master of the long pause, often spending more than half of its entire life in a state of profound metabolic stillness. To look upon a hibernating dormouse is to see the very definition of peace. As the autumn air turns crisp and the hazelnuts fall, the dormouse prepares for a journey that will last up to 6 or 7 months. It does not simply lie down. It performs a delicate and brilliant feat of biological geometry. It curls its small, flexible body into a tight, perfect ball. It tucks its nose toward its belly and wraps its long, furry tail around its face like a soft, living scarf. There is a deep scientific logic to this shape. By curling into a sphere, the dormouse minimizes its surface area, the amount of skin exposed to the surrounding air. In the world of physics, heat escapes through the surface, and by making itself as small and compact as possible, the dormouse creates a closed loop of warmth. It becomes a tiny planet of life where every calorie of energy is guarded with the utmost care. It is a masterpiece of efficiency, a way to hold on to the fire of life when the world outside is doing its best to put it out. This little sphere of life is further protected by a sanctuary of its own making. The dormouse builds a hibernaculum, a nest, woven with exquisite care from shredded bark, dry grasses, and soft moss, often buried just beneath the leaf litter or tucked into the cool, dark earth at the roots of a tree. This nest acts as a secondary skin. Inside this woven chamber, the air is perfectly still. The frost may touch the outer edges of the leaves, and the winter wind may whistle through the bare branches above, but the dormouse remains insulated, a tiny golden ember glowing in the heart of the winter woods. Imagine the absolute quiet of that nest. There is no sound here, but the faint rhythmic pulse of a life that has chosen to wait. The dormouse's heart rate slows until it is barely a hum. Its breathing becomes so light it would not even stir a stray hair of its own fur. It is a soft, weightless existence where the passage of months feels like the passage of a single, long shadow across the floor. In this space, there is no hunger, no fear, and no urgency. There is only the gentle, supportive pressure of the moss and the deep, restorative dark. As you settle further into your own blankets, perhaps you can feel a similar sense of enclosure. You are in your own sanctuary, safe from the demands and the noise of the world outside. Like the dormouse, you have created a space where you are protected. You can feel the warmth of your own breath, the softness of the fabric against your skin, and the comforting weight of the stillness around you. You are allowed to be this small, this quiet, and this safe. But while the dormouse finds its sanctuary in the soft debris of the forest floor, other creatures seek out a different kind of refuge. We leave the rustling leaves and the earthy scent of the woods behind, moving away from the sunlit world and toward the dark, yawning mouths of the earth's hidden chambers. We transition from the soft textures of the forest to the cool, unwavering silence of the stone, where the air grows damp and the temperature never wavers, moving toward the deep shadows where the air itself seems to hold its breath. Deep within the earth, the air changes. It becomes heavy, moist, and remarkably still. We have left the rustling leaves of the forest floor and entered the world of the bat hibernaculum. These are the hidden cathedrals of the winter, limestone caves, deep rock crevices, and abandoned mines where the temperature remains an unwavering constant. While the world above may be lashed by biting blizzards or scorched by an unseasonable sun, here the stone holds the memory of a gentle cool. It stays just a few degrees above freezing, a precise microclimate that acts as a thermal sanctuary for the thousands of tiny leaves clinging to its ceiling. If you were to look up into the high-arched shadows of these stone chambers, you would see a sight of profound communal peace. Bats do not always sleep alone. In the depths of winter, many species gather in great velvet clusters, huddling together in a social embrace that transcends the individual. By pressing their small, furred bodies against one another, they create a shared reservoir of heat, a collective warmth that buffers them against the chill of the cave walls. It is a living tapestry, a carpet of soft wings and delicate ears that pulses with a rhythm so slow it is almost imperceptible. Each bat benefits from the warmth of its neighbor, a quiet, instinctual agreement to survive the long dark together. In this space, the bats enter a state of deep metabolic surrender. Their ears, usually so sensitive to the slightest vibration of a moth's wing, become still and tucked away. Their wings are wrapped around them like silken cloaks. They are waiting for the world to turn, for the insects to return to the night air. But for now, they are simply part of the cave itself, as motionless and patient as the stalactites that hang beside them. Take a slow, deep breath now. As you inhale, imagine that the air is as cool and clean as the atmosphere inside a limestone chamber. It is a refreshing, quiet breath that fills your lungs and brings a sense of expansive calm to your chest. Feel the stillness of the room around you, much like the unwavering stillness of the stone. The darkness here is not empty. It is a soft, protective layer, a velvet curtain that has been drawn specifically for your rest. You are supported and safe, held in a place where the passage of time is marked only by the slow, rhythmic drip of water somewhere in the distance. As we move deeper into the secrets of the winter, we begin to see that nature's ingenuity knows no bounds. We have seen how mammals, creatures of warm blood and insulating fur, manage the cold by slowing their internal fires and seeking shelter in the earth. But there are others who take a different path. Creatures who do not fight the ice, but rather invite it in. We leave the dry caves and return once more to the edges of the frozen woods, moving toward the damp earth and the silent, crystalline ponds. Here, we encounter a world where the line between life and stillness becomes even thinner, transitioning from the mammals of the air to the resilient, surprising world of the amphibians. Imagine the forest floor in midwinter, where the ground is hard with frost and the fallen leaves are crisp and brittle under a layer of light snow. Underneath that thin, insulating blanket of leaf litter lies a creature that has achieved something almost impossible, a feat of survival that seems to defy the very laws of biology. This is the wood frog, a small, unassuming inhabitant of the northern woods that does not seek the warmth of a deep burrow or the social huddle of a king. Instead, it stays right there, just beneath the surface, as the temperature drops far below the freezing point. As the cold intensifies, a remarkable transformation begins. Nearly 65% of the frog's body water, more than half of its entire being, turns into solid ice. If you were to find one in the heart of January, it would feel like a small, cold pebble. Its skin is frosty, its limbs are stiff, and its eyes are clouded and still. It is hard, brittle, and seemingly lifeless, appearing more like a carving of a frog than a living creature. But inside this frozen exterior, a sophisticated chemical dance is taking place to ensure that this stillness does not become permanent. At the very moment the first crystals of ice begin to form on its skin, the frog's liver receives a signal to go to work. It releases a massive, concentrated surge of glucose, a simple sugar, into the bloodstream. This sugar acts as a natural antifreeze, a sweet shield that flows into every organ and every tiny cell. In a normal creature, ice is a destroyer. As water freezes, it expands into sharp crystals that tear through delicate cell membranes like glass. But the wood frog's concentrated glucose prevents the water inside the cells from freezing. Instead, the ice is forced to form only in the spaces between the cells. The vital internal structures remain liquid, protected by this concentrated sweetness, held in a state of sugary preservation, while the rest of the body becomes a block of ice. And then, the most profound part of this journey into the cold occurs. As the ice takes hold, the frog's heart, which has been slowing and slowing, finally stops altogether. It does not beat, not once. The lungs do not pull in air, and the blood ceases to flow. For weeks, and sometimes for months at a time, the wood frog exists in a state of total absolute suspension. By any traditional definition, it is no longer moving, no longer breathing, yet it is not gone. It is simply paused. Think about that level of quiet, a heart that has agreed to wait, a life that has surrendered its rhythm entirely to let the winter pass over it. It is the ultimate form of biological patience, a trust in the coming change of the seasons. When the sun finally begins to linger longer in the sky, and the frozen earth begins to soften and turn to mud, a quiet miracle occurs. The wood frog does not need a doctor or a spark to return. It simply thaws from the inside out. As the internal ice melts, the heart, warmed by the returning life of the forest, gives its first tentative beat, then another and another. Within just a few hours, the frog is fully awake, stretching its limbs and hopping toward the nearest meltwater pool to begin its spring rituals. It has returned from the very edge of existence, preserved by the simple power of sugar and the quiet, unwavering strength of its own cells. As we leave the frozen floor of the woods, we move toward the edges of the water, where the ice is thick and the world beneath is dark and slow. Here, another group of survivors is waiting out the winter in a way that is just as silent, yet hidden deep beneath the surface of the ponds. As we move from the frozen forest floor to the edge of a quiet pond, the world changes once again. Above the surface, the wind might be howling, and the snow may be piling high against the reeds, but beneath the thick, spun ceiling of ice, everything is profoundly still. The water here is dark, heavy, and silent, and deep at the very bottom, tucked into the soft, silty mud, lies the painted turtle. It is strange to think of a creature that breathes air, a creature with lungs much like our own, spending months submerged in a world where there is no air to be found. For a turtle, the frozen surface of the pond is a locked door, sealing them away from the sky until the spring thaw. To survive this, the painted turtle undergoes a transformation that is as quiet as it is remarkable. As the water cools in late autumn, the turtle's metabolism begins to slow, drifting down like a falling leaf. Its heart rate drops until it is beaten only once every few minutes, and its need for energy becomes almost non-existent. But it still needs oxygen to keep its cells alive, even in this deep state of rest. Since it cannot rise to the surface to take a breath, the turtle begins to breathe through its skin. In a process known as cloacal respiration, the turtle utilizes specialized, highly vascularized skin. This area is rich with tiny blood vessels that can absorb the small amounts of oxygen dissolved in the cold pond water. It is a slow, incredibly efficient way of breathing that requires no movement of the lungs and no effort from the chest. The turtle simply exists, its body drawing what it needs from the water around it, as if it has become a part of the pond itself. Down in the darkness of the pond floor, the water is at its densest and most stable, hovering just around 4 degrees Celsius. It is a world of suspended animation. The turtle remains perfectly still, its shell half buried in the mud, protected from predators and the biting frost above. There is no sound here, only the muffled weight of the water and the occasional slow drift of a piece of organic debris settling nearby. It is a sanctuary of absolute peace, a place where time seems to have no meaning. The turtle's body is a masterpiece of efficiency during these months. It has even developed ways to manage the buildup of lactic acid in its tissues, a byproduct of living with so little oxygen, by using the calcium in its own shell to neutralize the acid. It is a self-sustaining system, a quiet engine idling in the dark. As we imagine this turtle, safe and heavy in the mud, we can also look up slightly into the clear, cold water column just above the pond floor. Here, the turtles are not the only ones waiting. Other residents of the pond have also surrendered to the slow rhythm of the winter, hovering in the darkness like ghosts in a dream. Among them are the fish, whose lives have transitioned into a world of slow motion, where every movement is measured and every breath is a whisper. In garden ponds and deep, still lakes, the vibrant koi and the sturdy carp undergo a change that is almost ghostly in its stillness. They do not hibernate in the way a mammal does, but they enter a state of profound torpor, where the boundaries between life and a dream seem to blur. As the surface of the water begins to skin over with ice, these fish descend. They leave the shallow, cold edges and seek the sanctuary of the depths. There is a beautiful piece of physics at work here, a quiet miracle of nature that allows life to persist beneath the ice. Water is a unique substance. Unlike most liquids, It is at its densest and heaviest, not when it is freezing, but when it is exactly 4 degrees Celsius. This means that in a frozen pond, the coldest water, the water turning to ice, is actually the lightest, floating at the top to form a protective lid. Beneath that lid, the heavier, slightly warmer water sinks to the bottom. It is here, in this 4-degree sanctuary, that the fish gather. They do not sleep, but they do not truly wake either. Their metabolic rate drops so low that their need for food completely vanishes. In fact, if they were to eat during this time, their bodies would be unable to process the nutrients as their digestive enzymes have slowed to a halt. They survive entirely on the energy they stored during the long golden days of autumn. If you were to look through the clear ice into the dim world below, you would see them hovering. They are like living statues, their fins moving only in the tiniest, most infinitesimal increments to maintain their position in the water column. There is no urgency here, no hunger, and no fear. In this state of torpor, the fish inhabit a world of slow motion, where a single minute might feel like an hour, and a month passes like a single long exhale. Time, in the depths of a winter pond, seems to stretch and fade until it loses its shape. The heartbeat of a carp slows to a rhythmic, patient thrum, synchronized with the heavy, silent pressure of the water. It is a world of gray and deep blue, of soft shadows and muffled sounds, where the only thing that matters is the preservation of the spark of life until the sun returns to warm the shallows. As we drift away from these large, silent watchers in the deep, we begin to notice that they are not alone in their patience. If we look even closer, shrinking our perspective down toward the microscopic and the minute, we find an even more secret world of waiting. Tucked into the hollow stems of reeds, buried in the soft silt, or clinging to the underside of a submerged stone, the insect world has also surrendered to the great hush. Here, life is held in a different kind of vessel, one that is even more resilient and even more still. As we shrink our focus even further, moving away from the slow-moving fish in the depths, we find ourselves in the company of the truly small. This is the world of insects, where the strategy for survival is not just a slowing down, but a complete and total pause. In the world of biology, this state is known as diapause. It is a programmed physiological suspension of development, a state where the internal clock of life simply stops ticking for a while. Imagine, for a moment, an egg no larger than a grain of sand, tucked into the deep, rugged crevice of a tree's bark. Inside that tiny sphere, the blueprint for a butterfly, a moth, or a beetle is perfectly preserved. All the instructions for life are there, but the process of growth has been halted. This is not a choice the insect makes in the moment. It is a deep genetic wisdom triggered by the changing of the light. Long before the first frost arrives, the shortening days signal to the insect's body that it is time to stop. This state of diapause is a remarkable feat of timing. Unlike the hibernation of a large mammal, which can be flexible, diapause is often a fixed, mandatory period of rest. Once the insect enters this deep stillness, it cannot simply wake up because the sun happens to come out for a single, unusually warm afternoon in January. If it did, it would emerge into a world without food, only to be caught by the return of the frost. Instead, the insect's body acts as a biological stopwatch. It must experience a specific duration of cold, a certain number of weeks or months, before its internal systems are even capable of restarting. It is a safeguard, a way of ensuring that the delicate life inside does not resume until the danger of winter has truly passed. There is a profound quiet patience in this. A life fully formed in its potential is held in a tiny protective vessel. Whether it is an egg, a larva curled into a silk-lined chamber, or a pupa encased in a hard, brittle shell, it remains perfectly still while the world around it is whipped by freezing winds and buried under heavy drifts of snow. The insect does not struggle against the winter. It simply steps outside of time. It exists in a state of pure being without the need for doing, trusting in the eventual return of the warmth. Among these tiny winter travelers, there is one creature that many of us recognize, a fuzzy, banded wanderer, often seen hurrying across garden paths in the late autumn. This is the woolly bear caterpillar, the larval form of the Isabella tiger moth. While many other insects hide themselves away as eggs or within the safety of a cocoon, the woolly bear takes a much more direct and much more incredible approach to the coming cold. It does not just wait for the winter, it invites the winter in. The woolly bear caterpillar is a small, resilient marvel of the natural world. As the autumn air turns sharp and the ground begins to harden, this fuzzy traveler finds a quiet spot, perhaps beneath a fallen oak leaf, or tucked into a shallow dip in the soil. Unlike many other creatures that seek the deepest, most insulated corners of the earth, the woolly bear remains relatively close to the surface. It does not fear the frost because it has a secret held within its very cells, a biological mastery over the cold that few other animals can claim. When the temperature falls below the freezing point, the woolly bear does something that seems almost impossible. It allows itself to freeze solid. If you were to find one on a midwinter morning, it would feel as hard as a pebble. Its heart has stopped beating. Its tiny lungs have ceased their work. Its blood has turned to ice. It has become, for all intents and purposes, a small, fuzzy ice sculpture. But this is not the end for the woolly bear. It is a master of the multiple freeze. In regions where the winter weather fluctuates, a woolly bear might freeze and thaw many times over the course of a single season. It waits in a state of suspended animation. And then, should a warm sunbeam touch its leaf, it might slowly soften, move a few inches, and then freeze once more when the shadows return. It is a life lived in fragments, held together by a profound biological patience. This incredible survival is made possible by the production of glycerol. As the days grow shorter and the first hints of autumn chill arrive, the caterpillar's body begins to manufacture this natural antifreeze in high concentrations. Glycerol is a remarkable substance. It permeates the caterpillar's tissues and prevents the water within its cells from forming sharp, jagged ice crystals. Instead of the cells bursting under the pressure of freezing, the glycerol encourages ice to form safely in the spaces between the cells. The delicate machinery of life is preserved in a sugary, syrupy embrace, protected from the jagged edges of the cold. The woolly bear does not fight the winter. It simply lets the winter move through it, remaining unharmed, until the spring sun finally stays long enough to wake it for good. As you think of that small caterpillar, perfectly still and safe beneath its blanket of leaves, take a moment to notice the stillness in your own body. Feel the weight of your limbs as they rest against the bed. Your arms feel heavy, relaxed, and completely supported. Your legs are still, releasing any lingering tension from the day. There is no need for movement now. Just like the woolly bear, you can let go of the need to do anything at all. You are encased in a different kind of protection. The warmth of your room, the soft weight of your blankets, and the quiet, steady rhythm of your own breath. You are safe in this stillness, drifting toward a deep and restorative rest. While the caterpillar relies on its natural antifreeze to survive the deep freeze of the forest floor, other hibernating animals use a different internal mechanism to manage the cold. They carry with them a very specific type of energy, a biological furnace that works quietly in the background to keep their vital organs just warm enough to survive. This special reserve is known as brown adipose tissue, or more simply, brown fat. It is the hidden fuel of the long winter rest, a concentrated source of heat that operates quite differently from the white fat we are more familiar with. It is the bridge between the frozen world and the spark of life that remains within. To understand the magic of brown fat, we must first look at the difference between it and the more common white fat. White fat is like a vast, quiet warehouse where energy is stored for a rainy day. It is efficient and necessary, but it is passive, waiting to be called upon when food comes scarce. Brown adipose tissue, or brown fat, is something entirely different. It is active, dense, and deeply specialized. Its dark, rich color comes from a high concentration of iron-rich mitochondria, the microscopic power plants within every cell. In white fat, these power plants are few and far between, but in brown fat, they are packed together, ready to be ignited at a moment's notice. When an animal enters its winter rest, it cannot afford to shiver. Shivering is a frantic, muscular effort to create warmth, and it consumes far too much energy for a creature trying to survive on its own reserves for months. Instead, the body turns to what scientists call non-shivering thermogenesis. This is a quiet chemical process where the brown fat cells receive a signal from the nervous system to begin producing heat directly. The mitochondria within these cells contain a unique protein that allows them to short-circuit their usual energy production. Instead of creating the fuel that powers movement, they burn through fat stores to create pure, radiant warmth. It is helpful to imagine this brown fat as a series of small, steady pilot lights strategically placed throughout the body. These deposits are not spread evenly. They are often found tucked around the neck, between the shoulder blades, and most importantly, wrapped around the vital organs like a warm, protective scarf. While the animal's paws or its thick tail may drop to the temperature of the surrounding earth, its heart and its lungs are kept just warm enough to continue their slow, rhythmic work. This internal glow of warmth is what prevents the core from reaching a point of no return. It is a silent guardian, a biological furnace that keeps the spark of life flickering in the deepest dark of the burrow. as you lie here, safe and warm, you might imagine this same sense of internal glow within yourself. A gentle, concentrated warmth at your center, radiating outward to your shoulders, your chest, and down through your limbs. It is a feeling of being perfectly insulated, perfectly cared for by the intricate systems of your own body. You are held in a state of quiet protection, where every breath is supported and every heartbeat is steady. You are wrapped in a cocoon of your own making, much like the sleepers in the forest. This heat is essential, not just for the heart and lungs, but for the brain as well. Even in the depths of hibernation, the brain remains the conductor of this complex symphony of stillness. But here, we encounter a strange and beautiful mystery. We often think of hibernation as the ultimate form of sleep, a deep, uninterrupted slumber that lasts until the spring. However, the reality of the hibernating brain is far more complex. As the body's temperature drops and the brown fat provides its steady, localized warmth, the mind enters a state that is quite different from the sleep we know. While the body rests in its profound metabolic hush, the brain is navigating a landscape that is surprisingly quiet, leading us to wonder if a hibernating animal is truly dreaming, or if it is waiting for something else entirely. The answer to that mystery is perhaps the most surprising fact of all. While we often use the words hibernation and sleep interchangeably, they are, in the world of science, two very different states of being. In fact, if you were to look at the brain waves of a hibernating animal, you would see something quite unexpected. The brain is not moving through the rhythmic cycles of deep sleep or the vivid flickers of REM that we experience every night. Instead, the brain's activity is so quiet, so flat, that it more closely resembles a state of deep, dreamless suspension. Because the body is so cold and the metabolism is so low, the brain simply doesn't have the energy to perform the complex active tasks required for true restorative sleep. This creates what scientists call the paradox of sleep. In the midst of their longest rest, these animals are actually becoming sleep deprived. It seems contradictory to think of a creature that has been still for weeks as being tired, but from a neurological perspective, that is exactly what is happening. Our brains are remarkably busy while we sleep. They function like a nightly maintenance crew, sweeping away metabolic waste, organizing the day's memories, and repairing the very structure of our neurons. But these vital processes require a certain level of warmth and a steady supply of energy. When a hibernator's core temperature drops toward the freezing point, the cellular machinery responsible for these repairs simply grinds to a halt. The maintenance crew cannot work in the freezing dark. As the weeks of hibernation pass, a kind of biological debt begins to accumulate in the brain. The animal is physically resting, but its mind is not being restored. It is suspended in a cold, quiet void where time doesn't seem to exist. Yet the need for actual sleep continues to grow. This leads to one of the most fascinating behaviors in the natural world. Every so often, the hibernator must perform a task that seems to go against the very goal of winter survival. It must stir from its deep torpor and warm its body back up. but it doesn't wake up to eat or to drink or to see if the sun has returned. It warms up primarily so that it can finally fall asleep. The animal must use its precious energy reserves to bring its brain temperature back to a normal range, not for activity, but simply to allow the neurological processes of sleep to occur. They wake up from the deep cold specifically to get a few hours of real, slow-wave slumber. It is a moment of necessary brain maintenance, a chance to reboot the nervous system, clear out the chemical buildup of the long hush, and ensure that the pathways of the mind remain healthy and intact. It is a reminder that even in the deepest stillness, the mind has requirements that cannot be ignored. The brain needs the warmth of life to truly find its peace. As you lie here in your own warm bed, you might feel a sense of gratitude for the ease with which your own mind can slip into this restorative state. You do not have to wait for an internal furnace to kick in or fight against the encroaching cold. Your environment is already perfect for the deep healing work of sleep to begin. You can feel the quiet hum of your own thoughts beginning to soften, knowing that your mind is about to start its nightly journey of renewal, supported by the steady, gentle warmth of your body. The sleepers in the forest are waiting for their brief windows of warmth to find what you are feeling right now, the simple, profound comfort of a brain finally allowed to rest. Scientists have a specific name for these periodic moments of warming. They are called interbout arousals. While the animal may appear to stay tucked away in its burrow or den, its internal world is undergoing a dramatic, if invisible, transformation. For a few brief hours, the metabolic engine is turned back on. It is a process of tense biological effort as the body works to pull itself up from the brink of freezing. To put this into perspective, these short windows of warmth actually consume the vast majority of the animal's stored energy. A hibernator might spend nearly 80% of its winter fat reserves not on the long, quiet months of cold, but on these few scattered days of waking up. It is a staggering investment, a biological gamble that speaks to the absolute necessity of this internal maintenance. You might think of it as a ship that has been drifting silently in the fog for weeks, engines cut to save fuel, only to occasionally roar back to life to check its instruments, clear the decks, and ensure the hull is still watertight. During these hours of warmth, the animal's immune system, which largely shuts down during the deep cold, reactivates, scanning for any signs of infection or illness. The kidneys begin to filter the blood again, and the brain performs that essential housekeeping we discussed, clearing away the metabolic debris that has gathered in the stillness. This rhythm reveals a beautiful truth about the nature of life. Even in the deepest states of rest, there is a requirement for balance. Total stillness cannot be maintained forever without these moments of reconnection. The body must periodically check in on itself, tending to its own needs with a quiet, cellular wisdom. It is a reminder that rest is not a single flat line, but a series of waves, a slow, rhythmic pulse that ensures the flame of life is never truly extinguished, even when it is turned down to the lowest possible setting. As you lie there, you might imagine this pulse as a gentle glow that occasionally brightens and then softens again. It is a comforting thought that the body knows exactly what it needs and when it needs it. It doesn't require a conscious decision. The systems of life are self-regulating, always moving toward a state of equilibrium and health. You can trust your own body to do the same as you drift further into your own rest, managing your breath and your heartbeat with effortless precision. As the hibernating animal completes its internal work and its temperature begins to slide back down into the cool embrace of torpor, it leaves us with a curious question. If the brain is being chilled and warmed, turned off, and then partially rebooted over and over again, what happens to the information stored within it? We often think of memories as fragile things, like ink on a page that might fade if left out in the elements. One might assume that such extreme physiological shifts would blur the edges of a creature's mind, perhaps erasing the hard-earned lessons of the previous summer. Yet, as we look closer at the sleepers in the frost, we find that the library of the mind is far more resilient than we ever imagined. The pathways of thought, it seems, are built to withstand even the deepest, longest winter. It is a remarkable feat of biological preservation to think that a ground squirrel, after spending months in a state where its brain activity is almost undetectable, can emerge into the spring light and immediately remember the complex layout of its tunnels. Scientists have observed that these small creatures can retain the memory of intricate mazes they learned before their long slumber, and they can still recognize the unique sense of their kin, distinguishing friend from stranger, as if no time had passed at all. This suggests that the core architecture of the mind is not a flickering candle easily snuffed out by the cold, but rather a deeply etched blueprint. During the periods of deepest torpor, the delicate bridges between the brain cells, the synapses, actually retreat and prune themselves back, a process that in any other context might imply a loss of function. Yet, with each periodic warming we discussed, these connections regrow with astonishing speed, following the invisible map left behind in the quiet gray matter. The brain, in its wisdom, seems to put its most precious data into a form of cold storage, protecting the essence of the individual while the rest of the system powers down. There is a profound comfort in this resilience. It tells us that the things that make us who we are, our experiences, our connections, our understanding of the world, are not fragile things that require our constant, anxious attention to maintain. They are held safely within us, imprinted in the very fabric of our being. As you settle deeper into your pillows, you might find it helpful to imagine your own thoughts and memories in this way. The tasks of the day, the lists of things to do, the conversations you've had, they are all safely recorded. You do not need to hold on to them tightly tonight. You can let them drift away into the shadows of the room, knowing that they are stored in the quiet library of your mind, ready to be retrieved when the sun returns. Like the sleeping squirrel, you can trust that your inner world will remain intact even as you let go of the reins of consciousness. This capacity for metabolic stillness, for pausing the forward motion of life to endure a season of scarcity, is one of nature's most versatile tools. And while we often visualize this process occurring beneath a blanket of snow or within a frost-covered burrow, the science of hibernation reveals that it is not exclusive to the frozen corners of the globe. The drive to survive through stillness is a universal thread, appearing in places where the air is thick with heat and the landscape is painted in the vibrant greens and deep browns of the tropics. In these environments, the challenge is not the biting cold, but the relentless, searing dry season when water vanishes and food becomes a memory. Here, in the lush forests of Madagascar, we find a creature that challenges our traditional understanding of what it means to be a hibernator. Far from the icy tundra, tucked away in the hollow of a tropical tree, a small primate is demonstrating that the art of the long rest is a strategy that transcends the boundaries of climate and geography, proving that the need for deep restorative quiet is written into the very heart of the animal kingdom. In the lush, sun-drenched forests of Madagascar, where the air is often thick with the scent of damp earth and tropical blooms, the concept of winter feels like a distant myth. Yet, as the seasons turn, the rains vanish, leaving the landscape parched and the trees bare. It is here that we find the fat-tailed dwarf lemur, a small, wide-eyed primate that holds a singular, fascinating title in the natural world. It is the only primate known to enter a true state of hibernation, a discovery that bridges the gap between our own biological family and the deep sleepers of the frozen north. As its name suggests, this clever creature prepares for the lean months by storing fat in its tail, which becomes noticeably plump, a soft, living reservoir of energy. While the ground squirrel hides from the biting frost, the lemur retreats from the searing heat of the dry season. It curls into a tight ball within the hollow of a tree, its tiny hands tucked away, its breathing slowing to a rhythmic whisper that matches the languid pace of the forest's thirst. For up to 7 months, it remains in this state of suspended animation, its body temperature fluctuating not with its own internal furnace, but with the ambient temperature of the tree hollow itself. This remarkable adaptation tells us something profound about the nature of life and its resilience. Metabolic stillness is not merely a response to the cold. It is a universal language of survival, a strategy employed across the globe to navigate times of scarcity. Whether it is a bear in the snow or a lemur in the tropics, the fundamental principle remains the same. When the world outside can no longer provide, the body looks inward, finding sanctuary in a profound and protective quiet. It is a reminder that the ability to pause, to lower one's demands on the world, is an ancient and vital wisdom written into the very DNA of the animal kingdom. As you lie there, feeling the steady rise and fall of your own breath, you might find a sense of connection to this universal rhythm. The lemur, tucked away in its warm, wooden sanctuary, is a testament to the idea that rest is not a sign of weakness, but a masterpiece of efficiency. It is a necessary season of waiting, a period where the fires of life are turned down to a low, steady glow, preserving the essence of the being until the environment is once again ready to support it. But even in the deepest shadows of a tree trunk or the darkest reaches of a mountain cave, a mystery remains. How does the body know when the time for rest has come to an end? When you are tucked away in a place where the sun never reaches and the temperature remains a constant, unchanging cool, how do the cells know that the world outside is beginning to change? Even without the sun to guide them, these creatures possess a hidden internal compass, a biological clock that ticks away in the silence of their slumber, guiding them back toward the light of a new season. Imagine for a moment the absolute darkness of a deep burrow or a limestone cavern. There is no sunrise here, no shift in the wind to signal a change in the weather, and the temperature remains a steady, unchanging cool. To our human senses, time might seem to dissolve in such a place, losing its shape and meaning. Yet, for the hibernator, the passage of the seasons is still felt with remarkable precision. Even in a world without clocks or calendars, these creatures possess an internal guide that tells them exactly when it is time to return to the world above. Scientists call this internal compass endogenous circannual rhythms. The word endogenous means it comes from within, born of the body's own internal architecture, and circannual refers to a cycle that lasts approximately 1 year. This is not merely a reaction to the environment, but a biological clock that ticks independently of the world outside. In fascinating laboratory studies, where animals have been kept in constant light or constant darkness for years at a time, they continue to prepare for hibernation and emerge from it on a schedule that mirrors the natural world. It is as if every cell carries a tiny, invisible map of the Earth's journey around the sun, a cellular memory that persists even when the sun itself cannot be seen. This internal timing is a masterpiece of evolutionary wisdom. If a ground squirrel relied solely on the warmth of the soil to know when to wake, a brief midwinter thaw might trick it into emerging too early, only to find the landscape still frozen and devoid of food. Instead, the circannual rhythm acts as a fail-safe. It keeps the animal anchored in its rest until the true spring is near. This deep cellular wisdom ensures that the animal's internal state remains synchronized with the external world, even when they are separated by feet of earth or layers of stone. As you lie there in the quiet of your own room, you might find comfort in the idea that your body too possesses its own rhythms. Just as the hibernator trusts its internal clock to guide it through the dark, you can trust your body to manage the transition into sleep. There is a profound intelligence in your biology, a system of checks and balances that knows how to slow your heart, how to cool your skin, and how to lead you into the restorative depths of the night. You don't have to direct this process. You only have to allow it to happen, surrendering to the natural timing that has been perfected over millions of years. The hibernator's clock eventually strikes its final hour. Deep within the brain, the silence of the long rest begins to give way to a subtle shift in chemistry. The internal alarm sounds, not with a jarring noise, but with a gentle, persistent nudge. The long months of metabolic stillness have served their purpose, and the body begins to prepare for the most demanding phase of its journey. This is the start of what researchers call the Great Awakening, a transition as profound as the initial descent into sleep. It is a slow, deliberate return to the world of the living, a stirring of the embers that will soon become a bright, steady flame. The stillness is about to break, and the first pulses of a new season are beginning to vibrate through the quiet chambers of the den. As the internal clock signals the end of the long rest, a remarkable transformation begins within the body of the hibernator. It is a process of rekindling, a slow and deliberate warming of a system that has been kept just above freezing for months. This metabolic ignition is known as non-shivering thermogenesis, and it is perhaps one of the most intense biological feats in the animal kingdom. While we might shiver to generate heat when we feel a chill, an animal waking from hibernation uses a much more direct and powerful method. Deep within its chest and between its shoulder blades, the deposits of brown adipose tissue, that specialized fire starter fat we spoke of earlier, begin to oxidize at an incredible rate. It is a chemical furnace, bypassing the need for muscle movement to create heat. Instead, it generates pure thermal energy, sending a wave of warmth directly into the bloodstream to be carried toward the heart and the brain. The heart, which has been a slow, patient metronome beating only a few times a minute, begins to respond to this rising warmth. It is a staggering transition to imagine. In the span of just a few hours, a ground squirrel's heart rate may climb from a ghostly 4 beats per minute to a frantic, fluttering 300. This is the biological equivalent of a car engine going from a cold, silent standstill to top speed in a matter of moments. You can almost feel the rhythm of it, a soft, distant thrumming that grows louder and steadier as the blood begins to thin and flow more freely through the vessels. This surge of activity requires an immense amount of oxygen and fuel, and for a brief window of time, the animal's metabolism spikes to levels even higher than when it is fully awake and active in the summer. This transition, though beautiful in its precision, is a period of great vulnerability. It is the most energy-intensive part of the entire hibernation cycle. The animal is essentially betting its life on the fact that it has enough stored energy left to cross the bridge from the world of stillness back to the world of the living. During these hours of waking, the animal is often uncoordinated and heavy with a deep metabolic grogginess. Its internal temperature is rising rapidly, but its limbs may still be cool to the touch as the body prioritizes warming the vital organs first. It is a delicate, high-stakes dance of chemistry and heat performed in the absolute silence of a burrow or a hollow tree. But then the payoff arrives. The warmth finally reaches the extremities, and the stiff, curled muscles begin to soften and stretch. The first deep breath is taken, not the shallow, infrequent sips of air from midwinter, but a full, lung-expanding draw of the earthy-scented air within the den. The animal stirs, perhaps blinking away the cobwebs of a half-year's rest. There is a profound sense of triumph in those first shaky steps. As the hibernator pushes through the remaining snow or clears the dirt from the mouth of its tunnel, it encounters the world anew. The light of the spring sun, though pale and gentle, feels like a sudden, welcoming embrace on its fur. The great awakening is complete. The stillness has been traded for movement, and the silence for the soft sounds of a forest returning to life. You might imagine that first moment of standing in the cool morning air, feeling the strength returning to your legs and the clarity returning to your mind, knowing that the long, dark journey is finally over. As the animal stands there, bathed in the pale light of the early spring sun, a fascinating chemical shift is taking place deep within its brain. During the long months of cold, the brain was in a state of suspended animation, but as the body warms, the gears of consciousness begin to turn once more. One of the most important players in this transition is a molecule called adenosine. In our own daily lives, adenosine is what scientists call sleep pressure. It builds up in our brains while we are awake, making us feel increasingly tired as the day goes on, and it is cleared away while we sleep. But for a hibernator, the relationship with adenosine is quite different. Because hibernation is not technically sleep, the brain actually accumulates a significant amount of this sleep debt while the animal is under. When the squirrel or the bear finally warms up and wakes, its brain is flooded with the chemical signal that it needs to rest. Real restorative sleep. It is a strange paradox. The animal must wake up from hibernation, just so it can finally fall into a deep, dreaming sleep. This transition back to a state of normal consciousness is like a slow-moving tide coming in. The neural pathways that have been quiet for months begin to crackle with electricity again. The brain must recalibrate itself, clearing out the metabolic fog and reestablishing the delicate balance of neurotransmitters. You might think of it as a computer booting up after a long period of being unplugged. At first, the systems are slow, the movements are deliberate, and the focus is narrow. But steadily, the world comes back into sharp relief. The animal begins to recognize familiar scents, the layout of its territory, and the specific calls of the birds returning to the trees above. The internal map of its life, which was stored safely in the cold dark of the winter, is unfurled once again. Let yourself sit with that image for a moment. Imagine you are standing in a quiet meadow, the air still crisp with the scent of melting snow and damp earth. Feel the weight of your own body relaxed and supported, much like the animal resting on the soft ground. Now, visualize the first true beam of golden spring sunlight reaching down through the branches. It touches your skin with a gentle, persistent warmth. It isn't the scorching heat of summer, but a soft, promising glow that seems to seep through your clothes and into your very bones. Notice how that warmth feels, a quiet invitation to let go of any remaining tension. Just as the hibernator feels its blood begin to flow more easily in the sun, you can feel a sense of ease spreading through your limbs. Your breath is slow and deep, mirroring the steady rhythm of a world that is finding its footing after a long rest. This incredible biological feat, the ability to turn life down to a flicker and then fan it back into a flame, is more than just a curiosity of the natural world. It is an evolutionary masterpiece that has led scientists to ask a profound question. If a ground squirrel or a wood frog can master the art of metabolic stillness, could we? For a long time, it was thought that hibernation was a specialized skill, something humans simply weren't built for. But as we look closer at the chemistry of the brain and the resilience of the heart, the line between them and us begins to blur. We share much of the same genetic blueprint as these master sleepers. Deep within our own biology, there may be a hidden potential, a dormant switch that, if understood, could change the way we think about medicine, healing, and even our place among the stars. We are beginning to realize that the silence of the winter den holds secrets that might one day belong to us as well. This dream of human hibernation isn't just a story from a book. It is a growing field of study known as synthetic torpor. While it sounds like something from the distant future, It is a concept that scientists are exploring right now, right here on Earth. Imagine a spacecraft, silent and dark, drifting through the velvet blackness of the solar system. Inside, the crew is not busy or stressed, but tucked away in a deep, dreamless state, their bodies resting in a way that feels almost like a long, quiet winter. To make this vision a reality, NASA has turned its gaze away from the stars for a moment and down toward the forest floor, looking closely at the lives of bears and ground squirrels. A journey to a planet like Mars takes many months of travel through the void. During that time, a human crew requires a massive amount of food, water, and oxygen, resources that are heavy and difficult to carry across the vast distances of space. But if humans could enter a state of regulated torpor, much like the animals we've discussed, their metabolic needs would drop significantly. In this state of metabolic stillness, the heart would slow its rhythm, the breath would become a soft, infrequent whisper, and the body would require only a fraction of its usual energy. It is a way of pausing the clock of the journey, allowing the travelers to arrive at their destination as if they had only been asleep for a single night. The science of the future is truly hidden in the burrows of the present. By studying how a ground squirrel protects its brain during the cold, or how a bear maintains its muscle mass while stationary, researchers are finding clues to keeping astronauts healthy in the low-gravity environment of a long-haul flight. There is a profound irony in it, that to reach the furthest reaches of our galaxy, we must first master the ancient, quiet wisdom of the creatures that live beneath our feet. We are learning that the most advanced technology might not be a machine at all, but a deeper understanding of the biological grace that already exists in nature. It is the art of doing more by doing less. As you lie there, feeling the steady pull of gravity and the warmth of your surroundings, you might find comfort in the idea that your own rest is a form of preparation, a way of gathering strength for whatever lies ahead. Just as the hibernator's stillness is a vital part of its life cycle, your sleep is the foundation upon which your waking life is built. And as we look at how hibernation allows a species to endure the most challenging environments, we begin to see that this state of rest does more than just protect the individual. It also serves a greater purpose for the world they leave behind. By stepping out of the active flow of life for a season, the hibernator creates a unique kind of space in the ecosystem. It reduces its footprint, allowing the environment to breathe and recover during the times when resources are most scarce. This quiet withdrawal is not just a personal survival tactic. It is a contribution to the balance of the entire natural world, a way of living in perfect harmony with the changing rhythms of the earth. This concept of doing more by doing less extends far beyond the individual animal or the potential for human spaceflight. It ripples outward, affecting the very fabric of the ecosystem. When a creature enters hibernation, it effectively removes itself from the food web. Its ecological footprint, the amount of water it drinks, the plants it grazes upon, or the smaller creatures it might hunt, suddenly diminishes to almost nothing. In the leanest months of the year, when the earth is covered in a shroud of white and the sun's warmth is a distant memory, this reduction is a vital necessity for the survival of the whole. If every creature in the forest remained active through the winter, the competition for the few remaining berries, seeds, and scraps of greenery would become a desperate struggle. The landscape would be stripped bare, leaving nothing for the arrival of spring. But nature has a more elegant solution. By choosing to sleep, these animals are performing an act of profound environmental stewardship. They are stepping aside, leaving what little food remains for the birds that do not migrate or the hardy mammals that stay awake. It is a form of biological budgeting, a way of ensuring that the limited resources of a frozen world are not exhausted. There is a beautiful, quiet symmetry in this arrangement. In many cases, both the predator and the prey are resting at the same time. While the ground squirrel is tucked into its burrow, the badger and the bear are also settling into their dens. The chase is paused. The ancient dance of survival is momentarily suspended. It is as if the entire wilderness has signed a seasonal peace treaty, a collective agreement to lay down the burdens of the hunt and the flight. In this stillness, the ecosystem finds a different kind of balance, not one of movement and energy, but one of shared absence. Imagine the world as a grand, intricate clock. During the spring and summer, the gears turn rapidly, the pendulum swings with vigor, and every part is in constant motion. But as winter arrives, the clock does not break. It simply slows its ticking. The tension in the springs is released. The world takes a long collective breath and holds it. This is the harmony of the great pause. It is a reminder that life does not always have to be a race or a struggle. There is a deep inherent wisdom in knowing when to stop, when to retreat, and when to let the world carry on without your active participation. As you lie there now, you are part of this same gentle rhythm. In this moment, your own footprint is at its smallest. You are not consuming, you are not producing, and you are not striving. You are simply existing in a state of quiet grace. Like the hibernating bear or the frog beneath the ice, you have stepped away from the demands of the day to find sanctuary in the stillness. Feel the weight of your body against the mattress, a steady and grounding presence. Notice how the air in your room feels cool and creating a private world where you are safe to let go. This stillness is not a void. It is a full and restorative space. It is the environment's way of healing itself, and it is your body's way of doing the same. By embracing this rest, you are aligning yourself with an ancient planetary wisdom that has guided life for millions of years. You are participating in the same restorative hush that falls over a winter forest, a silence that is not empty but heavy with the promise of renewal. Allow yourself to sink deeper into that hush, knowing that by resting, you are exactly where you need to be. Under the cover of the night, the world is at peace, and everything is exactly as it should be. If you were to stand in the middle of an ancient forest during the peak of winter, you might notice something more profound than the cold, the silence. This quiet is not merely a poetic observation or a trick of the mind, it is a measurable biological reality. In the specialized field of soundscape ecology, researchers track what they call acoustic energy, the total volume of sound produced by an environment. During the winter months, this energy drops to its lowest levels of the year. The biophony, that beautiful, chaotic orchestra of living things, effectively goes on a long, seasonal intermission. This silence is the direct result of the metabolic strategies we have explored. When millions of insects enter diapause, the constant hum of wings and the rhythmic chirping of crickets vanish. When birds migrate to warmer climates, the complex morning chorus is replaced by a vast echoing stillness. And as mammals retreat into their burrows and dens, the rustle of dry leaves and the snapping of twigs underfoot become rare occurrences. The forest is not just resting, it has become a cathedral of stillness where the very air seems to hold its breath. Adding to this biological hush is the physical nature of winter itself. Snow is one of nature's most effective acoustic insulators because each snowflake is porous and contains tiny pockets of air. A fresh layer of snow acts like a giant sponge for sound. It absorbs the vibrations that would otherwise bounce off the hard earth or the bark of trees. When you walk through a snowy woods, the world feels muffled, as if you're wrapped in a thick velvet blanket. This isn't just a feeling, it is the physics of winter working in harmony with the biology of rest to create a sanctuary of quiet. As you lie there now, take a moment to notice the silence in your own space. Perhaps there is a distant hum of a heater or the soft ticking of a clock, but allow the primary sensation to be one of quiet. This silence is not empty. It is a supportive structure, a soft container for your thoughts and your breath. Like the forest under its blanket of snow, your room has become a sanctuary where the acoustic energy of your life has been dialed down. You have stepped away from the biphony of your day, the conversations, the digital pings, the traffic, and the noise of a busy world. Embrace this silence as a form of protection. It is a gift that the earth gives to itself once a year, and it is a gift you are giving to yourself right now. In this quiet, there is no pressure to perform, no need to respond, and no expectation to be anything other than a living, breathing part of the natural world. This stillness is your den, your burrow, your safe place beneath the ice. There is a profound beauty in this cycle of noise and silence. We often think of life as a constant stream of activity, but the winter forest teaches us that the quiet parts are just as vital as the loud ones. The silence of winter is the space where the future is prepared. It is the time when the earth gathers its strength, hidden away from view. As you drift closer to sleep, let the silence of the world outside and the stillness of your own body merge. You are part of a grand ancient rhythm, a cycle that understands that for every season of growth and song, there must be a season of deep restorative hush. Feel the peace of that hush now, settling over you like the softest fall of snow. As we look back at the vast landscape of winter survival we have explored, it becomes clear that hibernation is far more than just a way to endure the cold. It is an evolutionary masterpiece of efficiency, a testament to the incredible resourcefulness of life. We have seen how nature does not simply give up when the sun fades and the frost takes hold. Instead, it turns inward, finding ways to stretch a single heartbeat, a single breath, and a single gram of energy into something that can last for months. It is a biological art form, a refined strategy that has been perfected over millions of years to ensure that life continues even when the environment seems to suggest otherwise. Think back to the wood frog, lying beneath the leaf litter, its body partially turned to ice. It is not broken. It is waiting, its cells protected by the sweet chemistry of glucose. Remember the painted turtle at the bottom of the pond, pulling oxygen from the cold water through its skin, a silent witness to the world above the frozen surface. Recall the Arctic ground squirrel, whose blood remains liquid even as its temperature drops below freezing, and the bear, whose body performs the miraculous feat of recycling its own waste into life-sustaining protein while it dreams in the safety of its den. From the tiny huddled form of the dormouse to the social warmth of a bat hibernaculum, we have witnessed a spectrum of stillness that covers every corner of the natural world. Each of these creatures represents a different solution to the same fundamental challenge: how to exist when the world offers nothing. And each solution is a marvel of biological precision. This journey from the frozen frog to the sleeping bear shows us that there is no single way to rest, but that rest itself is a universal necessity. It is the silent engine that powers the next season of growth. It is the foundation upon which all the activity of spring and summer is built. In our own lives, we are often taught to value movement and progress above all else. We are told that to be still is to be unproductive, and that sleep is a lapse in our achievements. But the science of hibernation offers a gentle correction to this idea. Rest is not lost time. It is not a void or a gap in the story of our lives. It is, in fact, essential for life itself. It is the period of repair, of consolidation, and of deep cellular restoration. Without the winter, the spring could not happen. Without the stillness of the night, the energy of the morning would have no foundation. When we rest, we are not stepping away from life. We are engaging in one of its most vital processes. As you lie here now, feel the truth of this in your own body. Your rest time tonight is a vital act of self-care, a biological imperative that is just as important as anything you did during the day. You are not doing nothing. You are allowing your heart to find its steady, resting rhythm. You are giving your mind the space to settle and your muscles the chance to release their hold on the world. You are participating in the same ancient, efficient masterpiece that allows the bear to emerge strong and the frog to wake with the thaw. You are giving yourself the gift of preparation for the tomorrow that hasn't yet arrived. The journey through the science of sleep in winter is nearly complete. We have traveled through the dark caves of bats, the deep burrows of squirrels, and the frozen depths of ponds. We have seen how life persists in the silence, and how beauty is found in the slowing of the clock. Now, it is time to let the science fade into the background and allow the sensation of rest to take over completely. The facts have served their purpose, guiding your mind away from the noise of the day and toward the quiet of the night. Feel the weight of your body against the mattress, as heavy and relaxed as a creature tucked deep within the earth. Let your breath become a soft, effortless tide, moving in and out without any need for direction. The world is quiet, the air is still, and the journey is leading you toward the most natural destination of all, a deep, peaceful, and restorative sleep. You are safe, you are warm, and you are ready to settle into the final, deepest part of the night. The long journey through the winter landscape is coming to a close. Beyond your window and far across the continents, the world has draped itself in a mantle of profound quiet. The ancient trees stand bare and patient, their sap stilled within their roots. The animals we have traveled with tonight, the bears in their earthen dens, the wood frogs beneath the frozen leaf litter, the tiny bats in their limestone cathedrals, are all safely tucked away. They are not merely waiting for life to begin again. They are living life in its most concentrated, peaceful, and efficient form. And now, it is finally safe for you to do the same. There is nothing left to learn tonight, nothing left to remember, and nothing left to do. The science of survival has shown us that there is a time for every rhythm, and this time belongs entirely to your rest. You are supported by the steady ground beneath you, sheltered by the walls around you, and warmed by the blankets that hold you in their soft embrace. Your body knows exactly how to enter this state of metabolic peace. It is a biological wisdom that has been refined over millions of years, a gift of evolution that allows you to let go and simply be. As we reach the end of our journey, let us follow the rhythm of a hibernator's heart, slowing down beat by beat until the world fades into a gentle silver blur. We will count down together from 10 to 1, and with each number, you will feel yourself sinking deeper into the restorative hush of the night. 10. Feel the weight of your limbs, heavy and relaxed, like the roots of a tree deep in the winter soil. 9. Your breath is a slow, shallow tide, moving without effort, as natural as the wind through the pines. 8. The warmth in your core is steady and protective, a soft glow that keeps you safe and secure. 7. Your heartbeat finds a slower, more rhythmic pace, going the patient metronome of the sleeping earth. 6. The thoughts of the day are like falling snow, drifting down, settling quietly, and disappearing into the white. 5. You are halfway to total stillness now, your mind a quiet, dark chamber where no noise can reach you. 4. Every muscle in your face, your neck, and your shoulders has let go, dissolving into the softness of your pillow. 3. The world outside is a distant memory, a faint hum that only serves to make your sanctuary feel more peaceful. 2. You are hovering on the very edge of a deep, dreamless sleep where time and space no longer have any pull. 1. Total stillness, metabolic peace. The world is sleeping and you are part of that great restorative cycle. There is no urgency here, only the infinite patience of the winter. You are safe in the darkness, and the promise of a bright, warm awakening is held securely in the cells of your body, waiting for the distant call of spring. But that is a story for another time. For now, there is only the silence, the warmth, and the deep, beautiful rest you have earned. Sleep now. Sleep in the quiet. Sleep in the peace.